All right, so have you ever really thought about the origins of horror,
Like where it all began.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's like we all know these iconic monsters, right? The vampires, the werewolves, Frankenstein, the mummy.
They're almost like, well, they are the bedrock of the genre, aren't they?
Totally. And what's fascinating to me is how they've managed to, stick around for so long.
Absolutely. It's like they've been woven into our cultural DNA, haunting us across generations.
And today, we're going to dive deep, really deep, into one particular wellspring of this monstrous legacy. The Universal Monsters franchise.
Oh, now we're talking. Universal Pictures, right from the early 20th century, became this incredible melting pot for these terrifying figures.
It's true, isn't it?
Yeah.
They didn't just adapt these classic monsters from literature.
Which, by the way, think about that for a second. Adapting those well-known novels like Dracula and Frankenstein, that must have given their films a certain, I don't know, legitimacy back then.
Oh, for sure. Instant prestige appeal. But they didn't stop there. They also created their own original monsters, building this whole shared universe of horror.
Exactly. I mean, talk about a stroke of genius. But before we get ahead of ourselves, let's rewind a bit. Where did these iconic monsters first come from?
Okay, so we all know Dracula and Frankenstein's monster came from books, right?
Uh-huh.
But what about the rest of that classic Universal lineup?
Well, a lot of those early stars of Universal horror did indeed have their roots in literature.
Oh, so who are we talking about specifically?
Well, you've got Bram Stoker's Dracula, of course.
Yeah.
And Mary Shelley's Frankenstein.
Right. Classics.
And then there's Robert Louis Stevenson's Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde.
Oh, yeah, a real psychological thriller.
And let's not forget Gaston Leroux's The Phantom of the Opera.
Okay, so Universal basically took these ready-made literary nightmares and said, let's bring these to the big screen.
Exactly. They recognized the inherent drama and, well, the built-in audience that came with these stories.
Makes sense. But they didn't jump right into those big hits, did they? Weren't there some earlier adaptations, even before the 1930s?
You're absolutely right. Universal was already experimenting with horror adaptations quite early on.
Like what?
Well, there was Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde in 1913.
Okay.
Then The Hunchback of Notre Dame in 1923.
Got it.
And, of course, The Phantom of the Opera in 1925.
Oh, wow. So they were really testing the waters, weren't they? Seeing if audiences had a taste for the macabre.
Precisely. And those early films, even in their silent forms, were often visually spectacular productions. But then everything changed in 1931.
1931. The year horror truly found its voice, wouldn't you say?
It's the year the Monster Mash really got cookin', with the release of both Dracula and Frankenstein.
Those films were absolute game changers, weren't they?
They really were cultural earthquakes. Suddenly, there was this undeniable proof that audiences craved these kinds of stories told through film.
It's like they unleashed a whole new level of fear. And this success must have really gotten the wheels turning at Universal.
Oh, absolutely. The studio, especially under Carl Laemmle Jr., started to think strategically. I mean, they literally changed the ending of Frankenstein.
They did? Why?
To leave the possibility for the monster to come back in sequels.
Wow. Talk about thinking ahead.
Mm-hmm.
So they weren't just making individual horror movies. They were starting to envision an entire monstrous world.
Exactly. And it didn't stop with Dracula and Frankenstein.
So who else joined this early cinematic monster squad?
Well, hot on the heels of those iconic films, you had The Mummy in 1932.
Right?
And then in 1933, The Invisible Man hit the screens.
And each one brought its own special brand of terror to the mix.
Precisely. But as you know, Universal didn't just rely on adapting existing stories. They started to cook up some original nightmares.
Yeah, like the Wolfman. He wasn't from a book, was he?
Not quite. While werewolf folklore has existed for centuries, the Universal version, as we know it, really solidified with the 1941 film The Wolfman.
And Lon Chaney Jr.'s portrayal of the tormented Larry Talbot. That's an image that just sticks with you, doesn't it?
Absolutely iconic. And later, in 1954, they unveiled a creature that was totally unique and utterly unsettling. The creature from the Black Lagoon.
Oh, man, that Gill man. So creepy. And speaking of iconic creatures, I read somewhere that one of the later Mummy films was actually a co-production.
You're right. The 1959 version of The Mummy was a collaboration between Universal and the British studio Hammer Film Productions.
Ah, interesting. So it wasn't just a Universal party anymore.
It marked a kind of transatlantic shift in how these monster stories could be told, reinterpreted, and reimagined. But now let's talk about the real genius move that Universal pulled off, the thing that feels so incredibly modern.
You're talking about the shared universe, right? Like, how did they even come up with the idea of bringing all these seemingly separate monsters together? It's like the precursor to all those superhero team-up movies we see today.
It really is a groundbreaking concept when you think about it. Starting in the 1940s, they began to weave these monsters together in films like Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman in 1943.
Oh, yeah. What a title.
And then you had House of Frankenstein and House of Dracula, both released in 1945.
It's like they created this monster mashup, this grand interconnected world where all these creatures could coexist.
Exactly. Now, you have to understand that these weren't always the most tightly plotted narratives.
Right. I've heard them described as being kind of loose with how they connected.
Exactly. One source even called it a monster rally.
Uh-huh. I love that. And it wasn't always straight horror, was it? What about those Abbott and Costello movies?
Oh, you mean like Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein?
Yeah. How did they get mixed up with those Universal monsters?
It was a sign of just how deeply these characters had permeated pop culture. They were so recognizable that they could be parodied, played for laughs.
And that really speaks to their staying power, doesn't it?
Mm.
But it wasn't just a happy accident. I mean, Universal really leaned into this whole House of Horror thing, did they?
They absolutely did. They wanted to solidify their brand as the destination for all things monstrous.
And it worked. They became synonymous with the horror genre.
And their influence didn't stop at the box office.
You mean how they made their way onto TV?
Exactly. Moving into the late 1950s, you had television deals that brought these classic films right into people's living rooms.
Right. And shows like Mel's Matinee Movie. I bet a whole new generation discovered these monsters through those broadcasts.
And here's a fun fact. Stephen Sommers, the director of the 1999 Mummy film, has said that's how he first encountered these characters.
Wow, what a full circle moment. But it wasn't just TV, was it? Wasn't there a whole explosion of merchandise, too?
Oh, absolutely. By the 1960s, merchandising went through the roof.
I can just imagine kids back then building Frankenstein models and wearing those rubber monster masks.
Oh, you had it all. Model kits, masks, toys, lunchboxes, you name it. Even cultural touchstones like the Monster Mash song in the Munsters TV series. They both drew heavily on Universal's character designs.
Wow, it's amazing how these creatures broke free from their original films and became so ingrained in our culture.
Truly remarkable.
But did this monster mania last? I mean, what happened in the later decades? Did Universal try to bring them back for new audiences?
They definitely didn't let them fade away. In the 1990s, Universal made a real push to remarket their horror legacy.
What did they do?
They re-released the films on VHS under a unified classic monster banner, with a brand new logo and everything.
Smart move. Tap into that nostalgia. Did it work?
Absolutely. They also started to revisit those classic stories with modern interpretations.
Like that 1999 Mummy movie.
Exactly. And later you had Van Helsing, which was like the ultimate monster rally. Plus, even today, you've got all sorts of Universal Monsters merchandise, from apparel to board games.
So they haven't gone out of style at all. And what about that dark universe thing I keep hearing about? Didn't they want to create a whole new shared universe, just like those old monster rally movies?
That was a big ambition in the 2010s. They even announced a huge cast: Javier Bardem, Johnny Depp, Russell Crowe, just to name a few.
Wow, that's a lot of star power. So what happened?
Well, the first film, The Mummy, in 2017, didn't quite hit the mark with audiences, and those big interconnected plans were put on hold.
Oh, that's too bad. But it sounds like Universal hasn't given up on these characters altogether.
Not at all. They're still developing new adaptations. We had The Invisible Man in 2020, and a new Wolf Man is coming out in 2025. Plus, there's talk of new Frankenstein, Invisible Woman, and Creature from the Black Lagoon movies.
So the monster legacy continues.
It most definitely does.
It's really incredible to see the impact these Universal monsters have had, not just on horror movies, but on our culture as a whole.
They're practically the blueprint for so many horror tropes and characters we see even today. It's like they influence the very DNA of the genre.
It's crazy to think that these characters, which started in books and then exploded on film, are still resonating with audiences today. But their influence goes beyond horror, doesn't it?
It does. Think about the Hotel Transylvania movies. That whole franchise borrows heavily from Universal's classic monster designs.
It's true. And wasn't there even an Oscar-winning film that was originally going to be a Creature from the Black Lagoon remake?
You're thinking of The Shape of Water. Guillermo del Toro's masterpiece actually started as a concept for a Creature from the Black Lagoon reimagining, although it evolved into its own unique story.
Wow, that's fascinating. And for those who really want to get up close and personal with these monsters, there's that Dark Universe section opening at Universal's Epic Universe theme park in Orlando next year.
I can't wait for that. Imagine stepping into a world populated by Dracula, Frankenstein, and the Wolfman. It's like a testament to their enduring popularity.
Okay, well, as we wrap up this deep dive, I think it's safe to say that these monsters, as we call them, have left an undeniable mark on the world.
I completely agree. From their instantly recognizable looks to those shared universe films that paved the way for so many modern blockbusters, they've shaped how we experience and understand horror.
And by exploring their history, we gain a deeper appreciation for both those classic films and the countless ways these monsters continue to be reimagined today.
It's a testament to their power that they can tap into such primal fears and fascinations, which remain as relevant today as they were a century ago.
So here's something to ponder as we leave you today. How have these foundational monsters evolved in modern horror? What new fears and anxieties do they represent now? And maybe even think about which of these monsters resonates most with you and why.
Maybe after this deep dive, you'll see those classic horror films and even the new adaptations in a whole new light. Because understanding the history behind these iconic creatures enriches our understanding of the stories they tell, the fears they embody, and the ways they continue to haunt us even today.
And that's a wrap for today. Until next time.